The normative stance in the global north is often white, middle-class, able-bodied, cisgender, and heteronormative. The legacy of colonization and oppressive histories have brought these notions of the norm into the global south, privileging the knowledge, experiences, dispositions, and feelings of these groups and classifications. This normative stance and the concepts of whiteness often shape our biases and may show up in terms of aggression or insulting others. While it is beyond the scope of this training to unpack concepts of coloniality and whiteness, being aware of your biases and how they might influence the language you use is a critical first step towards providing constructive feedback. Most people have good intentions and do not want to cause harm when providing feedback. So as to ensure that we are all on the same page on how to provide an appropriate review, this next section of the training will briefly highlight some cursory definitions about biases and microaggressions. You will then have an opportunity to practice identifying problematic language in sample reviews so that you can be more self-aware with your feedback. As you may know, biases is a disproportionate weight in favor or against an idea or thing. They are closed-minded, prejudicial, and unfair. Biases can be innate or learned. People may develop biases for or against an individual, group, and/or belief. We will discuss unconscious bias in more detail shortly. Microaggressions, which can be broken down into several types such as micro-insults, micro-assaults, or micro-invalidations, are commonplace daily verbal, nonverbal, behavioral, and environmental indignities that communicate hostile, derogatory, or insulting messages to the target person or group. They can be intentional or unintentional. Unintentional microaggressions are rooted in the unconscious or implicit bias. Microaggressions are often invisible. These definitions are based on the foundational work of Gerald Wing Sue and more recently, Sue and Spanierman's publication on microaggressions in everyday life. Within the pod community and the educational development space writ large, authors such as Drs. Chang, Ganote, and Souza have also championed the dialogue on microaggressions and micro-resistances. Unconscious biases are social stereotypes about certain groups of people that individuals form outside their own conscious awareness. Everyone holds unconscious beliefs about various social and identity groups, and these biases stem from one's tendency to organize social worlds by categorizing. There are several common rater errors that may perpetuate unconscious biases. This includes the halo effect, which is the tendency to make inappropriate generalizations about the author's content or intent. Another common rater area is leniency, which is the tendency to evaluate all proposals as outstanding and to give inflated ratings rather than true assessments of the proposal. Central tendency, on the other hand, is the tendency to evaluate every proposal as average, while strictness rater error is the tendency to rate all proposals at the low end of the scale by being overly critical. Two other common errors that reviewers may make is the first impression error or the similar to me effect error. The first is the tendency to make an initial favorable or unfavorable judgment about the proposal and then ignore subsequent information that does not support this impression. The similar to me effect is the tendency to more favorably judge proposals perceived as similar to yourself and your scholarly work. To minimize these errors, you need to ask yourself, am I basing my rating on the content in the proposal, or am I making judgments based on my own perceptions and generalizations about the author's work? Questioning whether you are rating the author's proposals solely on their own merit or comparing them to other proposals will also help to reduce reviewer biases. Rating a proposal is not a place for imposing your personal opinions. Focus on the content that has been provided, not what you wish you had included if you were the author. Gender-based bias and ableism is particularly problematic. Being attuned to the author's use of language may be particularly helpful. Have they used patriarchal, masculine-associated, cisgendered, or ableist words or constructs? And if they have, how can you draw attention to this in a constructive way? Later in the training, we will discuss how to write constructive feedback.